Hi BookTube, I'm here to talk about the worst books I read in 2017. These are one of my favorite videos to make. I love snarking on books and love watching people snark on books. I included 4.5 books on here that I consider the worst books that I read in 2017. And they are ordered from least worst to most worst. Least worst, Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Solely because I could not read a John Green book and not include it on this list. I got this book for Christmas from my mom because apparently I don't rant enough to her about how much I dislike John Green. His writing, anyways. I don't know enough about him as a person to dislike him. Yeah, Turtles All the Way Down is about this girl and her friend searching for their billionaire friend's dad, basically. Yeah, just 2 reasons. 3 reasons why I don't like this book. 1, the main character, was empty, an uninteresting person, void of any and all interests. I think John Green maybe has this misconception that people with mental illness are only defined by their mental illness. The main character has, I'm guessing, OCD. And there's nothing about her. There's no TV show she likes. There's no books that she likes. There's no, she has no interest. She has no hobbies aside from just being all consumed by OCD. Which is not the case. Not the case. Sorry, it was really frustrating. Her best friend was far more interesting person because she actually had interest and she actually had a situation, she was living in poverty. As opposed to, why did he choose her as his main character? Just, whatever. There's a Manic Pixie Dream Boy. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. And the number 1 reason is because of the product placement. Every other chapter mentions Applebee's. And I'm like, why does every other chapter, how much are you being paid to mention Applebee's? And for goodness sake, if he wasn't mentioning Applebee's, he was mentioning Dr. Pepper. Why couldn't you just make up a diner that they go to, a cheap diner that they can go to and afford to go to, as opposed to mentioning Applebee's every other chapter? And I'm going to keep saying Applebee's during this review because hopefully they'll pay me too to say that. Yeah, that was really took me out of it, and I was just like, come on, seriously, product placement and ads and books. I watch enough TV and go on the internet enough. I get bombarded with ads everywhere I go. I don't need it while I'm reading. Next on the list is actually combined. So just an FYI, I have read all of these books through beginning to end, except for one on this list, which is why it's kind of combined. That's Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi and Mouse by Art Spiegelman. Mouse is the one I couldn't bring myself to finish. And they're combined because I dislike them both for the same reason. I didn't like the characters. And these are supposed to be autobiographies and biographies. These are supposed to be real people. And I know I've said I like fictional bad people. I don't like real life bad people. So in Persepolis, it was mismarketed to me. I was misled. I felt really misled. I thought it would be a story about a young girl going through the Iranian War. And it was for the first bit. And then she gets sent off to Europe by her family and becomes an exceptionally spoiled, selfish drug addict that I just didn't like. And I was like, where's the rest of the story about the war? I don't care about you going off and maybe or maybe not falling in love with someone and doing drugs and not going to school that your parents paid for. And I was just like, no, don't like you. And I'm going to talk, I know the issues you guys are going to bring up, and I'm going to talk about them in just a second. Mouse, I couldn't get past the character of Vladek, the main character who goes through the Holocaust. In case you don't know, Mouse is about the Holocaust and about Vladek Spiegelman experiences during that. But he was a sexist, racist, money-hungry loser who refused to marry this woman who obviously loved him in favor of a richer woman. And I couldn't read. I literally threw the book out. I was like, I just can't deal with this. And I know that people will try and excuse their behaviors and their experiences by saying they went through tragedy and trauma. But I don't believe that going through tragedy and trauma gives you a free pass to be a bad person. You had to have had those characteristics prior to that tragedy and prior to that trauma in order to have them manifest again after that. So yeah, I didn't like the main characters, and I couldn't reconcile their tragedy and trauma with them being these people. I'm like, no, that's an excuse. Like, no, you are a bad person, whether or not what you've been through, you know, doesn't account for it at all. Yeah, I'm just very angry about that. Next, is a book that honestly, the first 3/4 of it would have landed it on one of my favorite books of all time, but the last quarter of it has landed it on my worst books of all time, and that is Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. It's a story, there's kind of two storylines going on. We have this genius scientist, kind of outlaw character who's really cool, and he gets approached by this bird creature, and he starts coming up with all these revolutionary scientific ideas and stuff to help this bird creature out. And then his girlfriend, who has a scarab for a head, gets approached by this criminal mastermind to build a sculpture of her. And it is really super cool and interesting and really wonderfully written and really good observations and really intriguing. And then it's like something happened during that last quarter where either Melville went, I'm sick of writing, and handed it off to someone else to finish, or went himself just like, I really have to just finish this story. Because the last quarter felt like it was written by someone else. It didn't have that depth and that observation, and even the style was different. The previous plot lines that were there that were so fascinating kind of got dropped by the wayside for this detective story type thing to take over. Yeah, it just the last quarter was just so disappointing, that I just couldn't include it on the best of list. It had to be the worst. And the worst book of 2017, I did a whole review on. I was called out on national TV about how bad I thought this book was. This is 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. And I definitely did a full review of this, and we'll link it down below. So what is this about? Hermes and Apollo, yes, the gods, have this bet that if they give human consciousness to 15 dogs, that they will die happy. Or that they will be happy at the end of their life. Doesn't matter. Where do I begin? The writing is bad. It's just boring, straightforward. This happened, and that happened. Oh, and then this happened. And, yeah. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, I love pessimistic and bleak outlooks. Some of the books on my best of list are very pessimistic. You know, Wittgenstein's Mistress, she's the last person on Earth. Geek Love, you know, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, those are all kind of bleak and kind of pessimistic books and kind of down, but they're very interesting and witty and have wonderful observations and characters. There was nothing of that in 15 Dogs. It was just kind of bland, blanketed pessimism, and boring. It was just boring. The writing was boring, the plot was boring, the characters were boring, there was no depth to anything. It was just kind of very surface level messages, humans are bad. And there was no challenge to that view. It was just, that's the way it is. And I really did not like it. Yeah, so 15 Dogs. He must have paid off all the people in order to get the awards that he's gotten for this book, because I really don't see anything good in it. Yeah, that's it. That's my worst books of 2017. 4.5 books, because I didn't finish reading Mouse, so yeah. Thank you for watching.